give you a player card for me to use, or?
Oh yeah. Well,
It's anonymous.
how much money do I get for it?
Like $1 an hour?
Hell yeah. Alright, the meetup game is today, Friday. Shave, shower, get ready to go, and then just go. It's at 6 p.m. so we're gonna hit some traffic. Mickey doesn't have a car right now, so she's using my car to commute. So hopefully I can take my car, don't have to do Uber or Lyft, and hopefully get there on time? Question mark? Let's go. Alright, so despite my best intentions, about 15 minutes late. I'm the worst. I'm the worst. Like, who does this? Who just shows up late to an event that they organized? Who does that? There's like a big pot going on. We gotta get some B-roll here. Oh, it's all in.
We had a straight going. That was the only thing I was worried about.
Sorry.
Or Kingston.
Oh, but we got your stack in there too.
Thank God. Make sure you know how long in it is, okay? It's only 6:43.
That guy's about to head off. I just want to tell you that it was a pleasure. Thank you, man.
Pleasure, man. Thanks for coming. Always, always. Take it easy.
Make sure you keep posting on when the next one is. I'll be here.
Absolutely, I will do. I'll hopefully give people a little more warning next time. But we're here at the meetup game. We actually have a third table going right now, which is sort of bonkers. I actually kind of can't believe it. Say hi, guys. Hi, Mom. So we made it, and second table over here, we got Zach crushing in the background. I don't know if you can see his stack. But anyway, and then third table over there. So we're gonna try not to lose all our money before we get to all three tables, but second table right now, let's do it. But I don't know, like every way of describing it feels so
Some kind of investor
elitist,
type of thing.
Elitist. I don't know, like, oh, I have a brand. You know, like, oh, I'm a social media influencer. Like, yeah, okay, okay, dude.
We need content. We need content, quick.
Holy.
Oh. Hi, Hayden. Table 13.
Nice, Sam. Don't feature me, feature me.
Oh, okay.
Not.
You're not actually going into an asteroid field.
They'd be crazy to follow us, wouldn't they?
What? Wait, what? Somebody pull a calculator real quick. What's my odds?
The possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
You're like 70-30?
Never tell me the odds.
Oh!
Bomb pot. Bomb pot.
Bomb pot.
Bomb pot.
Never tell me the odds.
Oh!
As you can see, I am in full lake house mode here. Oh, that's a spider web. I'm in full lake house mode here, but I wanted to go over some of these hands from the meetup game many moons ago. I probably wouldn't even have done this video if it weren't for the fact that it was number one, a meetup game, and number two, Zach Hoke just wouldn't stop bothering me about it. I mean, he just really needed his moment in the sun, so you're welcome, Zach. Anyway, this is pretty sunny. Maybe that's gonna be better. So, the other reason why it's important to get this video out is that we are hosting another meetup game at Maryland Live. This time it's a 3-5 game, so it's gonna be our first $5 blind game ever for this channel. and we're gonna have a special guest actually. So this gentleman is somebody who not all of you will have heard of, but some of you should have if you're watching a lot of poker content, if you're watching live streams. You might have seen him play on Live at the Bike.
Is he gonna re-raise?
Yep.
Oh my god, he did it! A 3-bet bluff by Dan.
Dan Zach. So Dan Zach's gonna be joining us for this 3-5 no limit hold'em game. I don't know what the cap's gonna be. I assume it's gonna be the same as normal, probably at 300 or 200 to 1,000. And yeah, so he's graciously agreed to come out, hang out with us, and play, and probably take some of my money. You guys also took a lot of my money in the hands we're gonna talk about on this video, so it's all good. The details about that event are down below for the meetup game, and it's gonna be the 20th. That's very, very soon. I know, short notice, but if you're following me on social media, you will have seen this before. Yeah, it's gonna be 2 p.m. It's Sunday. Be there. Getting on into this meetup game's hands. Very unconventional. I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Meetup games are just very interesting when it comes to how people play, the amount of just general shenanigans going on, and this day was no exception. So let's just get into some of the hands. So in this first hand, I'm sitting on $320. Middle position opens it up to 15. The cutoff calls, the button also calls, and I'm in the small blind with 9s. I think we could go a couple of different ways here. Obviously, folding is pretty much out of the question. We can call, getting a pretty good price. We can primarily set mine here, and it's fine. We could definitely squeeze though, and I actually think that depending on the other stack sizes in play, squeezing might be preferable, but I did end up deciding to just call, and the big blind comes along as well, unsurprisingly. Flop comes out pretty decent for us. It's Queen Jack 9, and it's rainbow, so it's not as connected as, you know, a two-tone or monotone board. Still though, I think we have again kind of a couple options here. I think leading actually has decent merit because it's such a connected board. Nobody's really gonna fold a queen, and it's gonna check through a decent amount, I think, because the pre-flop aggressor just won't have a lot of bluffs here. But I did decide to check it in game and go for the check raise, but it does check through. So the turn, 6 of diamonds, puts a flush draw on board. No choice now, definitely have to lead. I put out a bet of $50, and the big blind calls. Everybody else folds, and we go heads up to the turn, which is the 4 of diamonds. So backdoor flush draw comes in. It's a little bit of a tricky card because when no bets go in on the flop and the backdoor draw comes in, it's a little more likely he has that. But that being said, there's just so many Queen X hands out there. There's probably no 2-pair in his range because he would likely have raised that on the turn or maybe led it on the flop. But there's just so many hands he can still call with that are worse. I decided to go for a somewhat small bet of $90, and he calls. My hand is good, and we get to take one down here.
That's good.
I think 9's a bit of center. I can.
So it's 90. 90.
Yeah, just 9.
Just 90, okay.
Yep.
In this next hand, we are now sitting on $500 in the hijack with King 10 offsuit and raise it up to $15. Cutoff in the big blind call, so go 3 ways to a flop of Queen 9 deuce with 2 diamonds. Checks to me, and I think that when we're 3 ways here, you could definitely opt to do a lot more checking than we typically would heads up. But we do have a gut shot here, so still gonna put out the C bet of $25. Big blind now makes it $75, and you know, he seems capable, so I just kind of felt like just giving up now might be a slight mistake. I decided to call, but in retrospect, I think that we can just fold. We don't have any backdoor draws to diamonds or anything like that. We just have the raw gutter, but I do make the call. The turn is a complete brick. I check. Oh, excuse me, the big blind is the one who check raised. So the big blind just bets again, and at this point I don't really think we can continue with the raw gutter. There's not enough behind certainly to just call, and I don't think racing is really gonna be a good idea, so I begrudgingly once again fold now, and he's gonna take this one down. In this next hand, we are sitting on $450. The button opens it up to 15. I 3-bet ace-5 of clubs to $60 in the blinds, and the button 4-bets to 130. Now, this is always a tricky spot at these stakes because even though it's a very, not very small, but somewhat small 4-bet, it's likely that this represents only vastly better hands than ours, typically hands like ace-king, queens plus, and some players will only really 4-bet kings plus. So I just fold. You know, the price we're getting would often suggest against a wider range that we should at least call, but you know, in these games I just usually don't. But again, the Meetup game shenanigans just get us. They get us this time. He's got the good old 4-deuce offsuit, and of course he shows it to us because he has to. So a little bit of a rough one there, kind of get owned, I guess. You know, it's one of those things where my 3-bet range is reasonably strong, so I can't really feel that bad about folding one of the worst hands I can 3-bet there, but obviously feel a little silly to get shown the good old 4-high. This next hand, we have 550 in front of us, so I must have picked up a few small pots in the meantime. But this one's a bomb pot, so in a bomb pot, we're all putting in $10 each blind, and we just go to a flop. So all, you know, 8 to 10 of us or whatever are going to see this flop with 100% ranges. This time the flop comes out ace-queen 9, and I look down at ace-queen of spades in the small blind spot. I think that check raising could be okay here. I think people will probably bet an ace a little bit too often and probably call to a check raise a little bit too often. But at the same time, when it's a rainbow board, I just don't want to check raise. I'd rather just bet and guarantee a bet goes in rather than maybe checking through and a really bad card coming, like something that completes a gutter. So I make it $45 and we get 3 callers somehow. The turn is also one of the really bad cards. It's a 9. So I think it's a little bit more of a scare card than it is an actually true bad card. So it's gonna kind of kill our action. It's gonna kind of prevent other people from wanting to put money in against us. They'll think we could have a 9 sometimes, where we really can't have a 9 and others likely can't have a 9 either. So I decide to check because I don't think I can get the value now, but I'm not that concerned about other people having a 9 unless it's like bottom 2 on the flop that makes a boat. So we check it and it ends up checking through, which is a really good sign. The river is the 7 of diamonds. I decide to bet somewhat large here because I think that people will just put us on bluffs. Every ace that's worse than ace jack is pretty much chopping now with other aces, so I think that this could be viewed as a bluff with an ace and we might just get looked up kind of wide. So I decided to bet 175, folds around to the cutoff, who shoves for 10. Now this is the guy who I folded to his 4-bet and who showed me 4-deuce offsuit. So just not really ever folding here. I mean, even if we don't have the queen, I think I probably end up calling, but obviously having ace-queen beating every ace other than, you know, ace-9, him not probably supposed to have a 9 here almost ever, make the call, and he shows an ace, but he knows he's no good when I call, I think. So, you know, kind of lucky there to have seen the previous hand, I guess, although we did lose some in that previous spot. We gained a lot more back here and get to take this one down. Bomb pots are the best. In this next hand, got 1,000 in front of me, open ace-king of spades from early position to 20. Only the hijack calls. The flop comes down queen, queen, jack with 2 spades, and I c-bet $30. I actually think we could go slightly smaller here, and we could also consider check raising. Like, there's a lot of viable options here when we have a hand this strong on this board, but the problem is that sometimes if we put in too much money, he's gonna just have us dead, or a lot closer to dead than we would like. So I think betting a little smaller probably is fine, but I do bet 30, he calls. Turn deuce of diamonds. Again, I think we still have optionality here because we just typically have a lot of outs versus range. Not against the queen, we don't, but he'll have a decent number of jack X hands, etc. So we could check, hope he checks behind, get to just realize our equity. We'll sometimes be ahead, or we could keep betting now and sometimes get him off of a jack, although it seems a little bit unlikely. I just choose to bet again, maybe just get him off of ace high and some straight draws just to kind of clean up our equity. Make it 85, he calls. The river is a 6 of hearts, and we have a kind of close decision here, I think. I think barreling 3 could make sense. A lot of times he'll have he'll have raised a queen on an earlier street, but I also don't think that's always going to happen. It is the meetup game, so weird stuff just happens sometimes. So betting is really tricky because we block all of the draws that we would want him to have that could fold, and we don't really block any queen X besides specifically king queen. I just decided to check and give up. I mean, I think occasionally, once in a really blue moon, he'll check behind and we'll just win against like a worse ace high, but most of the time we just are losing this hand, and I'm okay with it. He bets $120, which the sizing is so enticing that I almost wanted to call, but it's just like, he should recognize we're pretty weak at this point, and so betting small with value hands just makes sense. I do fold, and he shows us 7-4 of diamonds. And it's like, you know, I get it. People don't really believe me. They're gonna float kind of wide, they're gonna do some weird stuff, but when he showed me a 7-4 of diamonds, not even spades, not even, what was the backdoor draw? Oh, I guess it was diamonds. Man, I should just not bluff ever, ever. So we lose another kind of embarrassing one there, but you know, just getting owned at the meetup game is kind of the name of the game once in a while. You can't really make it not happen, and fighting it too hard is gonna make it probably happen more. So I'm pretty okay with my play on this one, even though we get shown just an absolutely absurd hand. In this next one, we've got 1300 in front of us. So again, we've picked up some smaller pots here and there, and in this spot, Ron Zucker, who's a guy who I'm actually pretty close with. He's in our pro group with School of Cards, so this is one of our like higher level groups that you can join. There's some content to it, there's a lot of accountability to it, and there's overall, you know, just a community basically of players. So he's come up through that group, gotten to know him pretty well. Came to the meetup game, great to see him, but also kind of annoyed to see him because he's a, you know, probably a better player than the average out there. So anyway, he opens it up in early position to 15. I'm in middle position with kings, makes it pretty easy. I decided to 3-bet to $60. The cutoff ends up cold calling, and Ron now 4-bets. So he makes it 240 with around 340 behind, and again, this is a spot where like a lot of players will have only very tight ranges, only very strong ranges. But for Ron, it's like, I know he's capable. He's also the type of player who's gonna have some bluffs here, at least some percentage of the time. It's not like only aces and kings. I think he's probably also value 4-betting queens and ace king, most likely, at least ace king suited, maybe not ace king off. So when he ultimately makes it this size with 340 behind, I figure a jam is pretty much always in order, and that's what I do. So I shove it in. Cutoff only has about 350 total himself. He folds, and Ron tanks a very long time.
That's this game that won.
No, I'm just saying. It's the weekend. It's the weekend. I'll put anything past that.
But eventually calls.
Okay, he calls.
Can we all in and call?
Good luck.
If you have kings, that was the deciding factors. I'm getting the right price against kings.
Oh boy. What? Oh. Hard to win now.
Oh shit.
Nice hand.
Nice hand, dude.
I had to do the math. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, I really was counting combos.
Not a great result. Ultimately, we ended up getting, you know, not like brutally stuck in this game. There were also a number of hands that came after that kings versus queen hand that I didn't really get the chance to document. That didn't go my way either. So we got, you know, hurt a little bit, I would say. But ultimately, pretty great game. I think this was one where we had like 3 full tables and a list for a little while, and the game ran pretty long. So great time. Always have to give a huge shout out to Maryland Live for just really great hospitality overall. I mean, Sorry, there's like 2 wasps there. Just great dealers. You know, the floor staff is fantastic. Everybody is kind of like starting to get to know our game, so it's just a really fun time. And also, we're getting a lot of repeat customers at these meetup games, which is fantastic. But seeing the new guys come into that dynamic too is always really fun. You know, ultimately these games are much more about just playing cards with, you know, people who are fun to spend time with than it is about, you know, winning money or losing money or whatever. So coming into that environment, I think, is really refreshing to a lot of players who are so used to kind of the generic casino environment, which is a little bit more, you know, cutthroat, I guess you could say. So once again, huge shout out to Maryland Live, huge shout out to everybody who came out. Shout out to Ron, shout out to Zach Hoke, and I hope to see you guys all at the next meetup game, October 20th, 2 p.m. at Maryland Live. Call in to get your name on the list, and I'll see you guys all there. Peace.
This is gonna be like the end of the vlog. It's gonna show